Previously on Living Proof.
Why is this? You've used the term addiction. Why is it so habit-forming?
It's appealing. I mean, let's face it. I think pornography is essentially a drug. If you think about it in that sense, it is so appealing. It provides a high. It's habit-forming.
Now, you're not just talking about sexual temptation, which we're all subject to. You're talking about something that really has a hold on you. Is that what sexual addiction is?
Exactly. It has a grip on you, and there's no control.
But it's an illusion. It provides an escape.
So then you realize, that this thing's got you, you don't have it.
And I told her it was all her fault. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody did it. If it really bothered her, I wouldn't do it anymore, knowing the whole time that I was lying to her.
And I just knew I had to do something now, or it was never going to end, and I would never be happy, and that I would hate him forever.
What men don't understand is when they got caught, it ended for them. It's just beginning for her.
Being caught is a relief because it just changes the whole way that you have to go about doing things.
This guy we're talking about who's gotten himself hooked on pornography, does he have a spiritual problem? Does he have a sexual problem? Is it all of the above?
Well, I believe it's all of the above. He's got a sexual problem because of what he's doing, but he also has a spiritual problem because he doesn't realize that whatever need he's trying to fulfill, God can heal that. And he's trying to fill that hole in his heart with something other than God.
And in fact, I usually tell people that really what we're talking about when we look at pornography is it's idolatry. It's a form of idolatry. It's looking for something outside other than the Lord to medicate, to help relieve pain, ease stress, provide pleasure. That's idolatry.
So the needs are valid, but the choices made to meet the needs, you're saying, since they're outside the will of God, are absolutely invalidated.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're destructive.
Yes.
Not only invalid spiritually, violating God's law, but it is destructive to a family, to a couple, to a wife.
To the individual.
Ultimately to the individual himself.
I mean, as far as whatever he does, and it takes more and more, so eventually he's going to do something that is very, very destructive.
He has sought to control his life, and in the process of doing it outside of the will of God, he's lost control.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the signs of addiction.
That's an addiction.
As it becomes more and more compulsive, life becomes unmanageable. That's why guys will get involved with all kinds of irrational kinds of behavior. We get in such a trance when we get involved in this kind of pornography that we will do foolish things. We'll look at pornography at work. We'll take all kinds of chances, all kinds of risks
He
that
becomes
are irrational.
desensitized to what is right, and he looks at things that he wouldn't have done if he'd have thought about it.
So, I mean, that's a pretty dismal picture you paint. Can the pattern be broken?
Sure.
How?
It's through therapy, and it's through getting into a group. It's through getting accountability. You have to become honest with what's going on inside of you.
And to me, it's part of rebuilding real intimacy in a marriage. I think at the heart or the foundation of so much pornography is this idea of false intimacy. False intimacy is an illusion. It feels good. It feels like intimacy when I look at images or those kinds of things. There aren't any risks. There aren't any fears of failure. But it's not real intimacy. So part of getting help is rebuilding and experiencing real intimacy the way God designed it to be.
It's realizing it's realizing that your world is not perfect, and it's okay.
This sounds a lot like the way the evil one, Satan, operates. God has created a context in which real intimacy can take place.
Exactly.
One man being joined irreversibly to one woman. So Satan comes alongside and says, well, there's a quicker, easier way to do it. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah,
so do you believe there's a satanic component as well?
There's no doubt there's a spiritual warfare kind of component to this. Satan, I think, is real, and he's out to destroy the family, doing a pretty good job of it in our culture, and out to destroy individuals, especially Christians.
And I think it's the way he twists things. I mean, look at how we have evolved in our society. I mean, things that we would have done in the 70s, now are out in public, and they're on billboards and all over, advertised.
Is there hope for those of us who live in the real world? You're saying it's out there, it's in your face. What do we do to protect ourselves?
I think we've got to be proactive. We've got to get out in front of this, and we've got to establish good, healthy boundaries. Pornography is, in a way, a loaded gun in the house. We've got to protect ourselves from it by setting up limits. For instance, access to our computers and that idea of privacy and anonymity. My wife has my password. She can go to anywhere I go on my computer. That's important. You know, we purposefully in my house, because I think I'm vulnerable to this whole issue of pornography. I think we all are. I have those kinds of limits. For instance, you can't hardly watch TV these days without being exposed to all manner of pornography, at least soft-core kinds of things. So I've got satellite TV, but I don't have the movie stations. I don't have the movie channels. That's by design. I think I'd be a fool if I had those kinds of things in my home, because I know I can be vulnerable to the kind of temptation
And I
that's
think
there.
Houston, he's a counselor. He's a Christian.
You
He
believe
heads
that?
up the department.
Exactly.
He's talking about vulnerability. Do you share those?
Sure, I'm just as vulnerable as anybody, and I think it's important to also have someone that you can talk to, another male that you can share with, and you can share those things that will ask the hard questions towards you and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Why not? Why another male? Why not with your wife?
Well, I think your wife needs to be in the role of being a wife. She doesn't understand what it means to be a male. Do you understand what it means to be a female? I don't. You need another male that can walk alongside you and ask you the strong questions. You share what you are doing and how your thought patterns are going, and those so dangerous areas in your life.
See, I just thought of
Mike.
another area that for me is a good boundary in my home. My computers that I have all have software filters built into them. I know that they're there, and I know that anything that I look at is going to be exposed. So that kind of boundary helps me when temptation comes.
So this is helpful. You're talking about boundaries, kind of drawing the line in the sand, not towing the
Exactly.
line. I understand that. So that sort of implies, tell me if this is true, most guys who get involved either in pornography or another form of sexual addiction, maybe even a full-blown affair, are they thinking that'll ever happen to them? Are they planning for that to happen?
I don't believe they ever plan for that to happen. I think it starts out as something very inquisitive because of their makeup and their structure and what have you. They go straight in, and it gets deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I
They
think-
never, ever planned to go to the places they
The nature
go.
of sin, I think we see in all kinds of sin, is that it's most often a gradual process. So yeah, I think most people, certainly there are those who are conscious of going out looking for an affair, but most people I don't think are. It's a gradual process where we lose touch with good, healthy boundaries, and we start sharing with another person, in my case would be another woman, things that I ought to be only sharing with my wife.
Emotional things.
Emotional things. It may not be physical at
Yeah.
first. It may be purely emotional. One of the things that we see all the time these days among Christians, if it's not a physical affair, maybe it's an emotional affair.
And women tell me that almost hurts more than the physical affair, because that's what she wants so much is the emotional connection to him, and he will not give it to her.
Because the world just says that it's okay. You know, they're not cheating on you. It's just a TV show. It's just a magazine. It can't hurt. But it really hurt me. He had hid it from me for so long, and I thought he was perfect. And to find out that he wasn't perfect just crushed me, because he was my everything, even though, you know, you're never supposed to be that way. But I just couldn't believe. And then to find out he had been doing this for years, I felt like a fool, because I had never had a hint, because I was just so clueless that he was so perfect he could never do something like this. You know, his friends might, but him, no, never.
I've noticed that a lot of couples, the problem's been around a long time. Tanya was really blindsided. She had no idea that that's what was at the bottom of me.
And so when all this came out, it had to have been my fault. I had to have been doing something wrong to push him away and to make him go towards something else. Even though it wasn't a person, it felt like he was cheating on me because he needed it more than me.
I was filled with anger. It became just, I got an attitude on me like I was just it. I was the only person in the world that mattered. And a lot of times I didn't really care what Tanya thought. And if I did, it was her problem. You know, she was the cause of the problems, not me. And I really loved her, but we were just drifting apart. To some extent, we were like two people just living in the same house.
I feel that we'd been drifting apart just because his attitude had changed. He'd become gruff and coarse, and he just wasn't the same person. And if I would ask him, you know, what's wrong? Why are you acting this way? Don't worry about it. You know, it's just work. Just don't worry about it. And like he was just pushing me away.
I had confused sex with love. And if you loved me, you needed to have sex with me. And the more sex you had with me, the more you loved me. Well, that's really wrong, because what I really desired was intimacy. And I didn't know what intimacy and true love really was, because it had been so tainted by the pornography.
One thing in the beginning is that I realized I'm not responsible for any of this. You know, I didn't cause this. Where in the beginning you are thinking I caused this in some way, and I didn't.
And Taylor and Shayla and Josh.
You just think, what could I do? Could I look nicer? Could I clean better? Could I, you know, somehow be a better wife? And then that I realized, but none of that would have mattered.
Pornography is very selfish, it's all about me, because it's you and a million other women, you know. If it wasn't true, then pornography wouldn't be as addictive as it is, but it is. It's very selfish, very self-centered.
I went berserk. I crashed the computer looking for things. I was in the middle of something and it rebooted itself. I don't know what I hit, and it just did. You know, I wanted to know where he was all the time. You know, going back and trying to put dates on calendars. Well, did he do this or did he do that? And I drove myself crazy, and there was no reason to do that.
Our marriage wasn't really bad. It was more of me dealing with stuff than our marriage together. Because I knew that if I could get issues straightened out for me, it would just make it better. So it wasn't like we were on the brink of disaster or anything like that. I just knew there was going to be a lot of trust issues that was going to be prevalent.
Rebuilding trust. Just little by little, when he was gone, I knew he really had to have gone where he said he was going, or he was good about taking one of the kids with him, but none of that was really an issue from the beginning. But he was doing whatever he could, I feel like, to say, okay, you can trust me that I'm not going off and running up to the shop or anything.
For me, the part of trust that I didn't get was the quizzing. You know, where are you going? What are you going to do? You know, and I don't like to be checked up on. And even though there was times she said, I wasn't checking up on you, I wasn't being nosy, I felt that because it was insecurity in me, thinking, well, I've been there before, what does she think? You know, on and on. So there's a mind game that goes on. I think trust takes a long time to build.
I think in the beginning it's normal for a woman to want to be so controlling, but then I see hindsight that that's like the worst thing you can do. And there's so many different emotions that go with it, the anger, the hurt, and all of that, and you've just got to kind of sort that out. And then you, as a couple, you learn when's the right time to talk about things and when's the right time to say, look, we need to work on this. And the biggie is to talk about me and not about him, is that I'm feeling this way, not you stayed at the store 20 minutes too long and that made me mad.
He went to the church Sunday morning and he talked to somebody and they gave him a card to set up an appointment with them. And the following day he called and set up an appointment. And he told me he was going and I said, okay. And when I got off of work, I drove by to see if his car was there, and it wasn't, and I was really upset, but I wasn't gonna lose my temper. I wasn't gonna think the worst, and when he came home, I just said, so how did it go? To see if he would lie to me. And I said, I didn't see your car in the parking lot. And he told me, well, it's not at the church, it's across the street. So I was there, and so I said, well, how did it go? And he told me, and I believe that he went. He gave me real information.
I think she was relieved that we were going. She probably didn't believe it would help. And she probably didn't think that I would follow through.
So you become more
Aware.
aware of what is out there,
Yes.
distracting.
And he may not even see it. I might say, oh my gosh, did you see that? No, what? And he truly means he didn't see it. He's not just saying that to comfort me.
And you believe that?
Yes. Yes. It's a lot easier to take now because he's trying. He's always trying. Still trying.
If I fail, it just reminds me of just what I've done to her in the past.
None of us are pure at heart.
Right.
But I think his motives are, he's wanting to be pure at heart.
I don't want to stick my head in the sand because he has said it's a daily, what'd you say, it's a daily decision.
In the beginning, there was not a women's group. Actually, when we started the women's group, I was the facilitator of the group. And the first group, we just kind of did a general marriage type study and not really specific in a lot of pornography issues. And it was helpful, but not as helpful as the second group where we keyed in on a book specifically on women and their pornography issues.
It's nice to know that you're not alone because, like I said, it's something that most people don't feel is a big deal. And to know that it hurts somebody like it did you, that you're not some kind of tight, bitty person.
Up until that point, I never let any male in my world, struggle world at all, period, case closed, other than to the only time that you even talk about things is like other people's problems, not your problems.
No, and actually pretty good, but just getting over the hurdle of every day, thinking like you're just on the treadmill, going nowhere, it's almost like tomorrow you're going to get broadsided.
You ever feel ashamed, like you think you ought to be past this by now?
Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning and I think sometimes I'm like, why, golly, how can I still be in the same spot I was in 8 years ago, And in reality, I don't guess I'm in the same spot, but yet the temptations are still there. So they're.
Our flag verse says, no temptation is not common to man. I mean, that means we're all tempted with that stuff. So it's always going to be there.
Learning that to make it and to succeed as a godly man, still going to struggle, but a godly man, that you need people to talk to.
There's always going to be something that throws a wrench into that plan. And I really think that something is, Satan's trying to upset what we're trying to do. And so we need to maybe not be so rigid on our plan, but be flexible to be able to look for the other ways that we can not be tempted to do things that we shouldn't.
It's really amazing how that the Lord always provides a way out. We just have to be willing to take it because, when I blow it, it's because I chose not to take the way out. And the Lord can be pretty creative sometimes to give us that escape.
We've seen a lot of guys walk out of the house and they're defeated before they leave. It's a mindset. I'm going to be victorious in this. If your mindset is, I'm going to fail, you're going to fail.
learning when we started, dissecting the addiction cycle. You got to identify with where you're at.
Exactly.
You're right in what you're saying. I kind of feel like you have to identify, where you're at in that cycle. To me, that was key because, the only time that I would really realize where I was at was at the acting out part.
This morning I went to work really frustrated, just really out of sorts, in a day that I really could have crashed and gave in. I had to pat myself on the back because I didn't.
My lifeline is I've got numbers in my cell phone. You're one of my primary accountability partners, so is Stanley. But then Jim's in there too because Jim's a prayer warrior, This week I was okay. I didn't have to make that phone call, but it's what keeps you alive sometimes.
Suggestions for other women that are facing this would be to, one, find somebody to talk to. If you can, go to counseling. If you can, go to counseling together. I do agree that I think a lot of things need to be dealt with on an individual basis. But you can't just... I found an online type support group and vented a lot there. And part of it was too, I couldn't be running around talking on the phone with the kids here, finding babysitters all the time. So that was one way, because you've got to get it out, because if you hold it in, you're just going to explode.
I think the counseling center did a wonderful job, because if they weren't there, we wouldn't have known where to go or what to do. I don't think we could have got the process started, because it begins in your heart. It's more deep than it's deeper than the pornography itself. If you just tried to do it on your own, I don't think you could have those hard questions to answer, or just someone there encouraging you to talk it out instead of bottling it up.
Just knowing that there's people there is a big help. It's just huge.
In the beginning, in the first initial shock stage, there's just so much emotion going on, and trying to, from a woman's point of view, tell him, yes, this is normal, and no, he's not going to understand what you're going through, because one, all these emotions are just totally new for him, and he can't deal with you and him at the same time. You need to let him deal with him, and then later on, whenever you think, I think they need to know how bad you've been hurt, but in the beginning, I won't say it doesn't matter a hill of beans, but if you want to survive, they've got to deal with some issues. And then on the other hand, you've got to deal with some issues too.
I think accountability is vital. Are you going to screw up? Yeah, you are. I mean, there's not a guy that can say that they're not going to have lustful thoughts, or they're not going to, you're not. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have struggles. It's what you do with those struggles, and how honest you are with yourself. How far are you willing to go to face up to what it takes to get a handle on it?
Do it now. Go talk to somebody, a close friend, a pastor, a counselor. Confess and get it out. Don't let it rule you and destroy you, because it will. I know that nothing can separate us from Christ, but I also know that pornography will make your life miserable. You will hurt the people around you. No matter what you tell yourself, you can't control it. It will consume you.
God has put this marriage together and kept it together. And if we wouldn't have got help, it would have just been a ruined marriage and another statistic.
Studies show that 50% of all marriages end in divorce. In our counseling ministry here at Sagemont, 50% of the couples that are seeking divorce counseling are suffering from the consequences of pornography. Sexual addiction is destroying our families and tearing at the very fabric of our society. It's eroding our men and women from the inside out. Statistics show that on the average, 1 out of every 2 men in the church are actively involved in pornography. These numbers include junior high and high school boys. The average age of exposure to pornography is age 5. 5 years old. These numbers are staggering and a wake-up call to action. So what do we do? What can we do? As a pastor, I'm deeply burdened for my congregation and community. We have established a strong counseling ministry here at Sagemont with counselors specifically trained to deal with these issues. If you or anyone you know needs help in this area, please call us. We want to help you find healing and freedom.
Pornography isn't just bad places you go to on the internet. It's watching the cheerleaders at a football game. It's whatever excites you.
There's tons of stuff to see, and unless he put on blinders or stayed home all day long, you can't do that.
What I find is once guys get caught, not that they're off the hook and they'll never do it again, but I find that probably they're not going to go back and do it more, especially if they've been caught and now they're seeking help and there is a process of legitimate repentance and restoration underway.
And I'm learning now, even 5 years later, to not beat myself up for being a human.
I'm not going anywhere. It doesn't matter what walks by.
Hopefully, I can relate to a person that they're not a bad guy, but you can't do it by yourself.
I guess we're looking for quick, emotional, relational relief.
We're the microwave generation. We want it right now.
Real intimacy takes hard work, and it is risky.
We communicate a lot more. We thought we communicated before, but now we talk about things that are hard to talk about.
A woman whose husband is engaged in looking at pornography can never meet those standards. They're false. Yeah. They're unrealistic. And so it's devastating to her sense of self-esteem. It is a betrayal that goes as deep as her soul.
It's more about the healing than the pain.
It was hard to start it, and it was hard to deal with the things I had to deal with, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.